And hello, everyone. Welcome to our COVID-19 talk with our HR experts. I have an amazing panel for you. And I know a lot of you, whether you're job seeking, you're currently working, or you've been recently laid off, you probably have a ton of questions around what are your rights as an employee and or a job seeker during this time period. And so I want to go ahead and just share have everybody go through and just introduce yourselves really briefly. And then what I've done is I've compiled a list of questions in advance from our audience. I'm just going to read them out loud, and whoever wants to take it, you guys can take it. So let's start off with Robin. And then let me go ahead and mute everybody else really quick. Okay, go ahead, and Robin, if you want to introduce yourself. Oh, you're on mute, so let me unmute.
Oh,
okay.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Signal. I'm the Director of Human Resources at Crexy, which is a real estate tech company located in Marina Del Rey.
Awesome. Good to have you here. Let's go ahead and hear from Cora.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cora Black, and I'm coming to you from the great state of Texas. I'm located in Dallas. Although COVID-19 has definitely affected my job search, I actually do HR consulting, HR Black, if you see my logo right there. And yeah, so I've always done HR consulting for businesses 500 and less.
Awesome. Nice to have you, Cora.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's move to Madeline.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline, and I am the Human Resource and Payroll Manager for Sun Air Jets. We're a private charter jet and management company here in Southern California.
Awesome. Good to have you as well. So we have California and Texas. Janice, do you want to introduce yourself?
I am based out of Miramar, Florida, which is a city just outside of Miami. And I'm a human resources business partner. I'm currently looking for my future work family and work home. So if anybody in the South Florida area is looking for an HR business partner, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. And let's move to Callie.
Hi guys, my name is Callie Maggio. I'm coming from Madison, Wisconsin currently. I have been with a company called Springs Window Fashions for the past 12 years in human resources, various functions, recruiting, generalist, manager. They are a private consumer packaged goods manufacturing company. I'm actually in an interesting situation at the moment because I did get another offer. I accepted an offer for a company in Washington, D.C. And in the meantime, all of this happened. So now I'm kind of between jobs. I had already given notice with Springs, and now I'm not able to start my new position yet. So I'm kind of on the job seeker and HR expertise side today.
Yeah, it's good to have a diverse perspective. So we're excited to pick your brain about all of that. Thank you, Callie. And Tony, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Johnson. I got my start in HR as an employment attorney very many years ago. And today what I do is HR consulting. So everything from talent management, performance management, but my concentration is in compliance. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Emily, for inviting me. And also to encourage everyone, because just recently I was contacted by 2 recruiters through LinkedIn. So people are still hiring, even though we're in this crazy time right now.
100%. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And for those that are new to me, my name is Emily Liu. I am a career coach. I used to be a former recruiter and HR professional, but now I'm really here to help job seekers navigate the job search, especially in this climate. So I know so many of them have questions. And again, I just want to thank each and every one of you for carving out your time today. By the way, for those that are catching us live right now in Facebook, if you have questions for our panelists, anything that you want clarification on, feel free to shoot your questions over in the comments and I'll be fielding those as well. So let's start off with just what's going on. I am curious if anybody can just kind of chime in on what COVID-19 means for employees who are going through furloughs. Let's start with that. So if a company is going through a furlough, can you guys just break that down into what that means for the employee and what the employee's rights are and what they should be thinking about? Let me go ahead and unmute Cora because I see your mouth moving.
Thank you. So the first thing that I would like to point out with the differentiation between being furloughed and being laid off. So when you're furloughed, that is just saying, hey, we are going through tumultuous times right now, but as soon as we are back on our feet, we have a place for you. And then of course, layoff is truly the situation of you're unemployed fully. There is no place for you even when they get back on their feet, right? So the beautiful thing about being furloughed, and if you are in a situation of being furloughed, take that as good as you can, right? In the sense of there is a silver lining. You're not in the worst scenario. Yes, it's going to be difficult to make ends meet between the time. A lot of companies right now are doing even 90 days, which can sound like a long time. But a great thing about furlough is that you do get to keep your benefits during that time. So you get to stay on your regular company plan, and that is probably the hugest benefit. You don't then have to go to healthcare.gov and have this special circumstance of COVID-19. So that's what I'd like to say about that.
And Cora, just to piggyback off of that, are people on furlough eligible for unemployment?
So there are special scenarios to assist you during the gap. So especially when it comes to, so in Texas, it's SNAP, which is like food stamps, correct? Mm-hmm. Like those sorts of things are still going to be available to you. I think thankfully, we have seen that our country does have a heart in these situations, and are helping you bridge that gap for employees that are even furloughed.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody else want to chime in on furloughs before we move on? Okay, Callie, yes.
Yeah, I would just add to that, unemployment is dictated by the states. So it varies from state to state, and then there's additional federal assistance we understand that people could be eligible for. But I would say even, if you're furloughed and you don't have anything coming in at the moment, chances are you are eligible. There's been a lot of expansion just as a result of COVID to include part-time employed, underemployed, gig workers, all that stuff. So go to your state's unemployment or Department of Labor website and see what you can find out about your eligibility, because chances are if you're not making any money at the moment, you do have some eligibility.
Okay, awesome. And then I want to just check in, like from an employer standpoint, do they expect their employees on furlough to be job searching for the next thing?
Mm-hmm. It's always, it's not something that any employer wants, just because, the more that you search, the chances that you find something better, something that fits you better, increase. Ideally you would be waiting for your call back and, sitting by the phone and ready to start tomorrow. But obviously that's not realistic in this situation. You have to take care of your family. You have to be able to pay your bills. So, I think companies understand that it's going to happen. It's not ideal, but it's something that we can't, it can't be avoided in this time.
And I would add to that, I think a lot of companies do have the expectation that their employees are going to be searching during this period of time. But on the converse side, a lot of employees are not going to feel comfortable searching either, because they're not sure that people are going to be hiring, and they don't want to go from one situation to a potentially unstable situation if the company's not in a position to make money, and then you can't pay employees. So it's a two-way street. I'm sure that some companies are going to lose employees because they're going to be looking, but a lot of employees are just going to want to stay put until they find out what the next step is going to be.
Beautiful. I have a piggyback off of that as well, because I hear from so many job seekers that they're really afraid of moving, like if they're currently employed, to a new employer, because due to their tenure, they're going to be the first one on the chopping block if they do end up doing layoffs. Is that a myth or is that a fact?
I think it depends. I mean, the companies that can afford to continue hiring during this time are probably not in a position to immediately turn around and cut that person. You know, companies are doing a lot of work at the moment to analyze their budgets and cut back where they can. And the positions that are still being recruited for are those, in my opinion, that have been deemed critical to operations. So they wouldn't be moving forward if they anticipated having to make a cut.
Yeah, I would also add to that so for example, at my organization, we just finished a big funding round just before this happened. And so we actually expect to have a ramp of another year and a half before we're even in any circumstances where there's financial constraint. And so I would say, as an employee who's job seeking in any way, really just kind of try to understand the position, financial position of the organization that you're looking at. And that should give you some insight into how they might be proceeding. And like Callie said, anybody that we're hiring right now, we've decided already this is somebody that we need on the team. And I think that companies that are hiring are have already decided they need that person. And it's not going to be a situation where layoffs are just going to happen the next month, for example.
Great point. I actually want to piggyback off of that and just ask, is that an appropriate question during the interview? You know, what is your financial projections, or how would you phrase that to really feel solidified as you're interviewing the interviewer?
That's definitely a ideal question. I mean, you should always be asking that question, even if it's not in this COVID-19 season that we're in. We should definitely be asking how stable the organization is, but really work it around maybe a sales job, right? What are the sales projections? What is the forecast for sales in the future? Or if it's, client based, well, how many clients, what kind of clients are you working with right now? If it's a retail company, right? Always ask, what is the sales progression? Are there any other stores planned to be open in the future or expansion? So you really work it around the industry that you're interviewing at, and get a true understanding of the business, where they are financially. You can also go online and Google if it's a publicly traded company. All of the trading information is online. They are required by law to post their income online. So all that information is readily available as well, to research yourself and to ask those questions during your interview.
Other thing that I can add on to that as well. So for private companies, if it's not kind of a sales position that someone might be looking for, you can always ask, what are your streams of revenue? Where is your money coming from? That might be something, especially with positions that are, coordinator, mid or low management companies, or positions that are not necessarily sales driven. That could be something where you can get a lot of information out of private companies that you might not be able to kind of see all of their data online. Is how do they make money? Where are those revenue streams? That way you can kind of focus that way and see what's happening.
Right, and I'd like to add to what Janet said. I think it's an appropriate question to ask. I think employers have an expectation that it's going to be asked in this climate, and it's all about how you ask that question. So to determine whether or not there's a forecast involved with that company. So asking, how are they adjusting in this COVID-19 situation? What are their forecasts for the future? How they had to adjust their forecasts from pre-COVID to the current state, and just try to develop a conversation around that. And you'll be able to pick up some information as to whether or not they feel stable. Are they cutting back? Are they still moving ahead with plans for growth? Those kind of things will give you an indication of what their financial stability is.
Okay, so unpopular opinion. I actually think that it can come off as inappropriate. So when it's all about some things you might say is about how you ask, not what you ask, right? So I think that it's something that we all are going to have to tread lightly. I think we all have to realize that these businesses, especially the businesses that I work with, that are usually family owned, this is something extremely personal to them. You have to realize that this is an extremely traumatizing experience, not just for the employees, but for the employers as well. They have been breaking their backs. They have been also working so hard just to keep a business afloat. This could be a business that was handed down from their grandparents. Even when it comes to my help that I do with my family's business, my brother has been, my father passed the torch to my brother. I think that if someone were to ask him that question, I think that would strike a chord, and you probably wouldn't get that job. I think it's very important to know the trauma that's coming from this, and to then be more sensitive. I know you want to protect yourself in that situation and make sure you're getting in a stable environment. However, honestly, on top of that, it all depends on what position you're looking for. The position is going to depend on who your hiring manager is. Sometimes your hiring manager will not be privy to that information at all. That's going to be something that's C-suite, that's executive level, that is leadership team, that they are trying to keep that core going, and for it not to bleed out to every single employee isn't going to know everything. And that's including hiring managers as well. So just wanted to keep that in mind.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that really is a testimony of how recruiting is very subjective across the board, and really just utilizing your, I don't want to say common sense, because they say common sense is not so common all the time, but really just your best judgment. And I really love what Tony said about just knowing how to position the questions, because there's a difference in asking in a polite way versus an aggressive way. So just knowing all of that, but I'm a big fan of always interviewing the interviewer as well. So, okay, we talked a lot about furloughs. I want to go to unemployment right now. So if somebody was formally laid off, what should they be thinking about during that first week, in your opinion, to make sure that they're set up not just for their current short-term unemployment, but also future job prospects?
I would definitely ask about benefits. So if you are enrolled in your employer's benefits plan, ask, until when will you be eligible for benefits? Typically, it's the last day of the month from when you were let go of the company. So if you were let go on March 31st, perhaps, or March 30th, perhaps the organization is allowing you to have benefits through April. So you really need to understand what those benefits are until when, as well as your 401k. Learn if you are enrolled in your 401k or any other pension plan. Find out who the administrator is of that 401k, and also learn, right now 401ks are allowing you to take out cash with not many penalties because of the COVID-19. So that's a great opportunity for you to learn who is your 401k administrator, as well as any vacation time, if you have vacation or PTO or sick time accrued, if the company is going to pay out that accrual for you, because that's definitely a great benefit as well. And you could easily make a 5-day pay, so you can get paid for 1 week's worth of work that you'll be eligible for when you're let go. So I would really ask those questions to get a clear understanding of what the benefits are that you can take with you, and any additional payout benefits, right? So ask those questions to your HR manager. Typically, a letter is provided. Some companies do provide a letter letting employees know what is out, available to them once they're let go. But sometimes with this, especially during these times, everyone's very busy. I was asking your HR groups that I'm a part of, what is it that employees are doing? And some employees are just sending employers, are sending mass emails to their employers, just letting them know, by the way, this is what's going to be going on the next coming weeks of layoffs or furloughs. So I would really reach out to your HR manager and get the information of what benefits are eligible to you, during this layoff time. And then, of course, find out how to apply for unemployment or any other benefits that you're eligible for through the state.
Another thing I'm going to add to what Janice just said is also make sure that you can have something in writing that says what kind of your term date was, whatever your last day employed. And that's going to be really helpful for applying for unemployment and just making sure everyone has the same records, both for you to put on your resume moving forward and for the employer to understand if they do reference checks that your numbers match. And then the other thing you can always ask, especially in a time like this, is what's the rehire process? You can always see, if I get hired within a year, do I get my seniority back, or maybe it's 6 months, if you're still interested in the company and the role. So asking questions about rehire, especially when a lot of companies, even though they're doing layoffs, they might still view them as temporary. So that can be really helpful as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and one thing I would also like to add is, so on top of the benefits, so you are going, if you were a full-time employee and you had benefits with your employer, then you will be offered COBRA.
Yeah.
COBRA's great until you look at the price. So usually, because the employee is then footing 100% of the bill, in the sense that that employer portion is no longer there. So for a lot of people, that's not going to be feasible. So I would say immediately look into the plans that are available on healthcare.gov. They are making a special stipulation that COVID-19 is going to be a qualifying event. And of course, loss of other coverage is always a qualifying life event to then get in healthcare.gov. So it doesn't matter if you didn't make the open enrollment window, you now have a qualifying event to then change. You might have limited changes that you can make, but you will be able to have coverage that's a lot more affordable. And look into those options. So this varies by state, but what assistance you can get from your state to pay for your benefits coverage. And that's going to be super helpful. Go ahead and file for unemployment ASAP, because it is going to be a 3 to 4 week process minimum. And then especially when it comes to things like I said, in Texas, it's SNAP. But if you're going to do things like you're going to want some funds for food, then those, like in the state of Texas, that takes up to 30 days normally. And they're already overloaded. So you want to go ahead and get that started as soon as you get that information.
Right. And I would add, what's so important is for everyone to do some research. If you're at home because you're unemployed, take a little bit of time to research your own state's unemployment and their own benefits, because every state is different. Here in New York, they've waived the waiting period for unemployment. So normally what would take 7 days, you can get immediately. The exchanges, there's a fight in Congress right now. So the administration wants to close all the exchanges. They don't want to extend them, even for the COVID situation. So you're going to have to rush to figure out if you need those benefits, if you can still get in under the wire. You're still going to need to apply for unemployment. And those who are traditionally excluded from unemployment, they're going to make an exception for that. I think someone mentioned that at the top of the call. So you need to discover whether or not you're eligible for that as well. So this situation is so fluid that you really just need to take the time to research your state's benefits or unemployment benefits situation.
Great. Thank you so much. And I want to also ask about negotiating severance packages. So can somebody speak to what employees should be thinking about as they are entering any severance package?
A lot of times companies just have a set policy. For example, the company I was with, I think it was, depending on your position, it was 1 week of pay per year of service or 2 weeks of pay per year of service if you were exempt or non-exempt. And sometimes that's, that's written into the policy. There's not a lot of room for negotiation. And especially during these times, a lot of companies don't even have the luxury to be able to offer severance. So I don't see it being an opportunity to negotiate a whole lot. One thing I would ask about, because when my company went through this in 2008, we did have to do a number of severance situations, and we had contracted with a company that specialized in offboarding or outplacement services. So they helped people, position themselves for future success by putting together up-to-date resumes, connecting them with different job-seeking resources, employee assistance program resources, so stuff like that to bridge the gaps. But as far as negotiation, I don't see that being a big opportunity personally.
Great. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so I actually want to talk about unemployment plus the $2 trillion stimulus package, or the $2 trillion stimulus package on its own, because we got some questions from our audience on, am I qualified for the unemployment check and whatever the package is giving to us? So do you mind, open-ended, to share kind of what that $2 trillion stimulus package means for those employees that are affected with COVID-19 right now, or affected by COVID-19?
Yeah,
So
yeah, go for it.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to give a general situation here. As we know, in our nation, most of those funds are going to go towards businesses. So I don't know if everyone's been keeping up with every country and how they've been responding to COVID-19, but this is not going to be a situation like in Canada where you get $1,200 for 4 months to cover your bills. This is going to be a one-time payout per individual, and then the rest of those funds are going to go towards triaging, really, the businesses and thinking. So the thought process is that if we help the businesses, then they will then have the space to have more employees. So what I was actually pleased to see is that at least some of it is going to individuals, and that's going to be based on your last year's tax return. But it's probably not going to be as much, but at the same time, yes, it will be in conjunction with whatever income you have coming in currently. So just because you're receiving unemployment benefits does not mean that you will not receive this stimulus package.
I also want to add on to that, that people who are on unemployment, what I've seen is that the extra $600, and this might just be California, the extra $600 a week that people can get kind of this due to COVID-19 backdates to the end of January. So people who maybe lost their jobs in February because of the very early effects of COVID-19 also qualify for that extra $600 a week. So that's something that helps employees. And as well as that $1,200 one-time payment. I've also seen that the IRS is trying to set something up for people to update, whether it be a direct deposit, new addresses. If they haven't filed 2019, they can see what the IRS has for their income levels. That way they can see what they may or may not get. As of yesterday, I don't think the IRS had any kind of portal set up, but something was coming soon to help update some of your information should you need to do that if you haven't filed 2019 taxes yet.
Great. Thanks so much, you guys. So useful. So I want to ask more about the Coronavirus First Response Act, and if you guys can just kind of share what that entails, and specifically what employees' rights are at this time. I know I have had a lot of people tell me that they are still being told by their employers that they need to work, and there's not a choice to not work from home. So specifically like what they can do in that situation, but maybe just in general what the act protects employees from or of.
I'd like to take an initial stab at it. I mean, the act is very, very broad. So when we talk about an act, it's really a series of 3 acts.
Yep.
And they're working on a 4th one now. So this is going to be, as I mentioned before, a very fluid situation. But the act really encompasses several different levels. The employer, the employee, and the FMLA as well, the Family Medical Leave Act, that's also implicated in this particular law as well. So if you are unemployed and you are receiving unemployment benefits today or even prior to COVID, you will be eligible for the $600 additional. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything additional you need to do. If you are unemployed today because of COVID, you really need to get on top of that. I know all of the unemployment offices that I've heard about are overwhelmed, inundated. It's hard to get through, but you got to keep trying. The other thing is, it's been expanded here in New York, and I think nationally it's 26 weeks. They've extended it to 39 weeks. If you have been on unemployment before and you've exhausted your benefits, you may be additional for the extra 13 weeks as well. So it's always in your best interest to go and apply to see if you're eligible, because you just may be. The thing about if you're at home taking care of your children because of COVID, because they're out of school, you can be eligible for some additional kind of compensation through your company. But if you mention that your company is asking you to go to work, there's, I think 90% of the country now is on a stay-at-home order. And you're not an essential worker. Like here in New York, you can't even get on mass transit any longer. You have to be an essential worker. You may have a claim against your employer. I think that's an extreme, but if you're in a situation where you're being forced to go to work and your company has not provided for protective gear for you, or they're forcing you against your government, your state government's rules to go to work, they could be in violation of the law. And that's something that you may want to look into to see how you can navigate that. It's a difficult situation if you're being forced to go to work, but I would say the only good thing is if you're fired, you do have a safety net to get on unemployment, to get some compensation. The last thing I want to add to it is that if you are at home because you're taking care of your child, the new law says that they're going to pay you up to 2/3 of your salary, which is different than unemployment, for a number of weeks. I'm not sure, I can't recall, I think it's up to 12 weeks now, but you may want to just look into that aspect of it as well.
Sure, I can piggyback right from where you left off there. The expanded FMLA is for people who do have work to go to and are unable to do that because of some kind of COVID-19, whether it's you're in your own self-isolation. If you're in a state that does have a stay-at-home order, that qualifies you. Here in California, the whole state is at a stay-at-home order. And so people who are considered essential, who do have work to go to, will qualify for that expanded FMLA leave. With that also comes a COVID sick time. The sick time is 80 hours if you currently work full-time. If you're working part-time, it's whatever the average of 2 weeks would be. And that works with the FMLA because the first 2 weeks of FMLA, even the expanded one, is unpaid. And then, as you had mentioned, it goes to 2/3 of your salary or wages up to a certain cap. So that's going to be for anyone who does have work to go to and is unable to do so for a number of reasons, watching a child, taking care of a parent, if you're in your own self-isolation. That's kind of a very broad overview of how that works.
And I definitely wanted to say, so just to give a broader stroke for, all of us on this panel are familiar with this. We've had to send it out to every employee and that sort of thing. Every employee has received it, but you have to make sure you can break it down. So generally, there are 6 qualifying events for you to receive this benefit. There are 1 or 2 of them that are 2/3 pay, all of the rest. If you have reasons 1 through 3, then that's going to be 100%. The rest are going to be 2/3. So even if it is a scenario in which you are living with someone that is high risk, that you are concerned about coming home and spreading the disease to them, then you can qualify. I will say the extremely sticky and frustrating part about this is going to be enforcement. The issue that I have run into with my clients, and also I do a lot of assistance with my HR consulting. I've expanded that to not just protect employers, but to also be a resource for employees. Thing is, you are going to have to try to work it out with your employer. I will say that the situations that I've seen work out in the last few weeks are when you come in, put all cards on the table and say, have as much humility as you can and say, I'm in this terrible scenario. Can we work something out? And really try to be that advocate for a creative way to handle it. I think all HR professionals right now, all companies, and unfortunately it's trickling down to the employees in some situations, you're going to have to promote the creativity to find those solutions for these issues. So if you're getting some kickback on saying, oh, but we really need you, right? And no, but we really need you to be here. No, that sort of thing. Then try to think outside the box. Take the opportunity to think outside the box. Pitch any scenario that you could think of that could make it easier for you, and that could also be agreeable to whatever personalities you're dealing with in your HR as well as your leadership.
Great. Thank you so much. I saw Robin, you try to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Chime in.
I just want to say one thing real quick. For the Families First Act, it's important to know that you don't have to necessarily be tested positive for COVID-19. So there are benefits that you're eligible for, even if you're just experiencing symptoms. This is particularly important in California because there are simply not enough tests available, and they actually won't test you unless it's a very severe situation. So there are a lot of people probably that have had the virus by now who have chosen to self-quarantine. And so just know that you don't have to test positive for you to still be eligible per the law. And I just want to say to anybody who's watching this that can't work from home, and that's not an option for them because of the circumstances of what they do or their responsibilities. I just want to thank everybody because I think you're making the world keep running right now. And so I think you absolutely need to have protection out there. And you need to know what your rights are, but also you're supporting all of us right now. And so that's just my own thank you to the people out there who are delivering groceries, making sure that our Amazon orders for our essentials are getting to us. Like you are a valuable member of this society. And I hope that your employer recognizes that for you too.
Absolutely. I want to give every one of those people a virtual high five. So just looking at the time, I want to make sure we have enough questions on the interviewing and hiring side of things. I was talking to a lot of my job seeking clients, and they were so excited that I was speaking with you guys today. And they actually armed me with a ton of questions because they're all just trying to figure out, how can I land a job at this stage? So I want to first address those of my clients that are international and they're on a H-1B or they're on an F-1 visa, because they've heard that, and I don't know how much merit is to this, so hopefully you guys can speak to it, but they've heard that H-1Bs have stopped processing. F-1 visas, you're not likely to get a job offer or opportunity. So can you guys kind of speak to the visa situation and what is true when it comes to hiring in this climate?
I can speak as an employer who has or hires employees that are on H-1B visas. I don't know all the details yet about the processing issues that are occurring right now, but what I can say is that for us, talent is talent. That it's not really going to matter if we have to work on an H-1B visa for you. If you're good talent, then we're going to hire you. So I don't want people to feel like that's a deterrent. If you're an employer who can hire, that amount of money really doesn't make a big difference in the overall story of what's going on.
Thank you.
Another thing to keep in mind is if you are a visa holder and you have a sponsor through an employer, and say you are are experiencing the layoff, right? Then you are going to have, so it might be a situation like, for example, I have a friend that is in Egypt right now, and there's no flights coming in, and there's no flights allowed to leave. All airports in Egypt are shut down. So that's a tough situation because then it can be seen as you're overstaying your visa. So I would say to make sure that you are staying within those parameters, to make sure you don't overstay a visa. Unfortunately, America is extremely strict about if you overstay, then you can be banned for a number of years. But I know for a fact for H-1B1 and H-1 visas in general, even J-1, which are research positions, that you are going to have a grace period to then figure out your next move or your travels back to your home country. Great. So I believe that grace period is anywhere from 60 days to 6 months.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, let me move because I have a lot of questions. So one of the questions was if you were in the interview process and then they put the hiring on hold, whether it was a hiring freeze or they just stopped, or maybe they made an offer but had to kind of withdraw it or extend the start date out, when would be an appropriate time to reach back out to follow up on possibilities of joining the team?
Just really quick. So this is, I think, is going to be very specific to the circumstance that you're in. If you've gotten some kind of extension, normally just waiting till closer to that extension to confirm a start date, confirm a hire date, make sure you have the right login is going to be a good option. If you're kind of left in limbo land and they're not sure if they're going to hire you or what's happening, paying attention to whether that business is essential or not with the stay-at-home orders is probably going to be a good option. Here in California, the stay-at-home orders in place, non-essential businesses right now are not doing anything. So if that's the case of where you want to be, being mindful of the fact that those businesses really can't do anything right now is going to be helpful. Maybe when those orders are lifted or they're getting near their quote expiration date, that might be a better time to reach out and just check in and see where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is actually a really, kind of the silver lining. It's a good time to build those connections while nobody's doing anything. Once you see things starting to pick up, if you see an order is lifted or businesses starting to pick up, be the first one to reach back out. Don't wait, because chances are there are a lot of other candidates that won't do that. And so you'll set yourself apart getting back into business, by paying attention to the other side of this shutdown.
Exactly what I was going to say. Follow-up is so rare already. There's so many times that people miss employment opportunities because they didn't follow up and have that stick-to-itness. So don't be afraid to reach out, especially certain industries. Like for me with HR, I've been on a job search, you know what I mean? So I follow up. Most recruiters that I've worked with are not offended by it. They're not annoyed by it. And it's actually refreshing for them instead of kind of the overall, it keeps a little bit more of a positive vibe for them and for you, that things are going to be okay and not the whole world isn't going to stop. And, it makes it seem like, oh, there's going to be a tomorrow. The sun will come out tomorrow.
Okay.
Great. So this kind of piggybacks off of like appropriate questions, but I'm sure you guys have all seen the meme by now where they say the next time I go into an interview, I'm going to ask the interviewer, how did you handle or how did you treat your employees during the COVID-19? So the question is, I'm not sure if this is appropriate or it could affect the hiring decisions, but am I able to ask that question? How did your company respond to the virus to ensure your employees kept their jobs or stayed safe?
I actually think it's a valid question, but I think that it's not really framed a way that is going to get you a positive response from the recruiter. Or whatever hiring manager you're talking to. I really think that instead of asking how the company kept all the employees, I think it's more how did the company respond to the COVID-19 crisis, and what were some of the things that the company did. And I think you're going to get a lot of insight without sort of offending anybody. I think the problem is that employers are making really hard decisions right now, really, really hard. I feel so much for all the people who are going through terminations and layoffs and furloughs. Also think about the HR people that are having to deliver all that news. And it's a hard time for all of us. And I think to sort of make the assumption that an employer didn't do the right thing potentially by doing a layoff, I don't think is a good way to sort of phrase that question. So pulling back and just saying, how did you respond? What were some of the things that the protective measures that you maybe took? Or what were some of the challenging decisions that had to be made by the organization, and how did you go about doing it? Some of that might be a little high level for maybe a position that you're interviewing for, but kind of try to think of it as an opportunity to just understand how a company responds to a crisis.
Right. I would agree. It's all about how you frame the question. And I think it's a valid question to ask. But as I mentioned earlier, if you could start a conversation around that, like you just said, how did your company respond to it? What did you find worked? What were some of the challenges that you faced? And have that conversation so you can get the information that you need without having a question that seems accusatory or that they failed in some way. You can get the information just by having that kind of talk and leaving it open-ended. That's what I would leave you with. Yeah. Have a question that's open-ended to give the employer room to really share what they'd like to share about that particular situation.
You're basically going into the question with compassion for the employer, what they did, what they didn't do. If you frame your question with compassion, I think that's exactly what Robin said and what Tony said is you'll get a much better response from them, whether they were in a good position or a bad position at the time.
Absolutely. And I think that, I've been such an advocate for people in my age bracket that whenever you ask those sorts of questions, it can come off as, who do you think you are, right? So for my counterparts and for people, I'm in my 20s, barely in my 20s, but I'm in my 20s. That's where the ageism can really come through of like, even if you need the information, what are you going to do about it? You need this job or not, and then that's where it can get really combative in an interview. And so I always say, ask questions like, what was your experience through the COVID-19? I know it was a crazy time. You can share some of your experience and then let the hiring manager give you something back. So as all of my colleagues on this panel have said, that's going to be the most important portion.
I would just like to add, I think it's really important for everyone listening to be proactive. This is a very unique situation.
Mhm.
We all need to be aware that while companies are fighting for their lives, individuals are fighting for their lives. We all need compassion and understanding, but as they say, this cliche is no more important now than ever. The only questions, the only stupid questions that you don't ask are the ones that don't get asked. You want to be clear about what steps are necessary to make that next move, and you want to be clear about your next move or where you're going to land. You want to be absolutely sure that this is going to be a right fit. You have to ask the questions. The thing about it is you have to be in a position to ask the appropriate questions with the right tone, the right words. That takes some skill. That takes practice. But you do need to ask, because if you find yourself in a situation that you regret, it's going to be because you didn't have enough information. You have to get that information up front.
Well said.
The other thing I would add just really quick onto that is there's a lot of information to be gained outside of the interview process. Most companies now are posting on their websites, here's how we're responding, here's the state of our business. And even like going onto social media, you can see not only how the company is communicating, but also how their employees are communicating. Are they actually paying people as they said they would? Are they not? Are they continuing benefits when they didn't have to? You know, what's the good and the bad and what's actually happening? You can do a little detective work beforehand and get kind of some background there.
Beautiful. I love that. Just making sure that you do your research and come prepared, because you don't want to look like somebody who hasn't done anything and asking the obvious questions, right? So I want to move to the final question in this segment, and that is negotiations. I have had a lot of people say to me, I don't think I should negotiate. They're going to withdraw the offer. I should just be grateful for whatever is coming my way. So I want to get your take on negotiations. Should a candidate negotiate what they believe to be their market value during this time?
As somebody who is a little bit on a hiring pause right now, but definitely still open and recruiting, I would say that at my organization, at least, by the time you get to an offer stage, it's pretty much a done deal. Meaning that unless you come back with some extreme ask, you know, that's well above even like 10% of what the offer is, I don't think that an employer is going to have a major problem with a negotiation. Again, I go back to understand the financial position of the organization, you know, and if you're applying for a company that is hiring right now, they're probably fine. And so I wouldn't go crazy. But I would also say don't go crazy anyway, whether it's now or later. And so, you know, you can certainly go in for a negotiation, just understand what the market is right now, and use a little bit of caution. But I would say employers are absolutely still open to negotiation, especially ones that are continuing to hire.
Yeah, it goes back to kind of, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with that completely. It's one of those things where if an employer is making the active decision to offer you a position, then they probably want you there. And at the same time, there's nothing wrong with, you know, asking for, and maybe it's not a wage, maybe it's an extra vacation day, something that the employer doesn't have to pay out right away. Maybe it's a tuition reimbursement, which actually right now with the CARES Act, they upped the amount that employers can pay, and that's actually a tax benefit to employers to pay back tuition for their employees. So that might be something you can ask for. And then also keep in mind, if you already have an offer, chances are the worst thing they're going to say is no. And then you still have an offer and you say yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Kelly, were you going to add something?
Very similar comments. I was just going to say, like we talked about already, the positions that are open now have already been vetted to the nth degree. If they can afford to fill it at 100K, they can afford to fill it at 105. You know, they've already made the decision to hire you. You've passed the process. So I would encourage people not to, you know, be afraid to throw it out. And like you said, Madeline, at the end of the day, you still have an offer. You know, whether they say yes or no, you can always throw it out there.
Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. Just being mindful of the time, I want to ask if any of you want to add anything about this whole COVID-19 HR. Maybe you're speaking to employees, job seekers, or HR colleagues. Anything you want to add before we wrap this up today?
I would just add, you know, if you are laid off and looking for a new opportunity, I would use this time as much as possible to upskill yourself. Reach out to your contacts, reach out to anybody that can write you a letter of recommendation. Really use this time to bolster your resume. You know, with the $600 extra that we're getting from the government, for people who are unemployed, on top of, in many states, their unemployment. You know, it's a little bit of a softer landing than maybe in other situations, which is nice. And so just again, use that time really wisely, and stay connected with people. Emily is a great resource for this, honestly, as somebody who's gone through her program myself. And so really listen to her advice if you're on this right now. She has some great, it's true. She has some great advice on how to position yourself well. If you haven't been through 2008, I know this is a different situation, but for some of these younger people, it will get better, and our economy is not just going to be shut down for eternity. It will pick up again. The stock market is actually improving, which is really interesting. So there are some signs on the horizon that things are going to get better. So just want you all to hang in there and know that it's not the end of the world, even though it might feel like it.
Thank you, Robin.
I would just say that to keep in mind as a whole, like even with the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, right? That is something that the first effective date was yesterday. So please expect more changes, more updates, more support going forward. So things are going to be ever changing. There might be some things that maybe you even hear about that the leadership that you have at your company has not. There might be different opportunities when it comes to those of which that are unemployed. So just keep your ear to the ground. I know a lot of us have been worn out on social media with people giving crazy information and misinformation, but go ahead and check in with the good sources, which are going to be your state sources. So that's going to be with your Department of Labor. That's going to be with Texas Unemployment. They are going to keep updates on their site for you. And of course, if you need me or any of my services, then you can reach out and I'll make sure my information is left here.
Perfect. Thank you. Kelly?
I mean, Robin and Cora, those are really awesome sentiments, and I echo those. Other than that, I mean, yeah, it's going to get better. Like Robin said, it's hard to imagine now, but we have to just do what's right for the moment and trust that little by little we'll start to see life get blown back into our economy and our job search process and all of that.
Thank you. Madeline, Tony?
I'm going to just echo a little bit on Robin. Use Emily as a resource. Even her free resources are amazing. LinkedIn is also wonderful. Follow people who have credentials if you don't know them. See who they're following. A lot of people who are following Emily have taken her advice, so you can see other people's profiles. You can really do your own free research if you're not in a position to financially move yourself forward, whether it be a certification or anything. But use those resources. They're fantastic.
Thank you.
It's everyone. It's stressful to look for a job, and now with COVID-19 and more stressful. What I encourage you to do is to allow you to go through the emotions that you feel, and to always remember, even when you hit that, to keep moving forward. Keep thinking about this is going to pass and you can get your next job. So use the resources that and provides, look through other information on the internet that you can obtain. Also think about maybe this is a time for you to make that career that you've been thinking about. But you've been too busy or your paychecks kept.
Oh no, it looks like we lost Tony. I was trying to pick up on context clues, but I surprisingly made that out. I hope everybody
I
did.
did too. Yeah, I must say he had some really good points too.
Yeah. So I want to just wrap up and thank you all again for being here, devoting time out of your busy day and just really providing support to our community. For those that don't know, I actually fielded you guys from the Cultivate Your Career Facebook group. And if you guys are job seeking, you need help, you just want like a professional development community, go ahead and type in Cultivate Your Career into Facebook and search groups and join us, or you can go to cultivateyourcareer.com and all my free resources and the link to the community is there. But I want to just wrap up by having each of you share where people can find you, whether it's your LinkedIn name, your website if you have one, and I'll also be sure to link all of you if you want to be tagged. I know listening to Robin, people are probably like, where does she work? Let me see where I can apply. But before I go into each one, I just wanted to thank Tony specifically because he jumped off, but not by choice. Tony Johnson, oh, he's actually still here.
He's back.
Let me see. Tony, you can get your camera situated, but let me just start with Robin and I'll go down the line. So Robin, do you mind just kind of sharing how people can connect with you and find you?
Sure. So you guys are, anybody is welcome to come and add me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I'm on it a lot. You can either search for my name, Robin, R-O-B-Y-N, last name Sanyal, S-A-N-Y-A-L, or you can find me on my link, which is linkedin.com/Robin Lee, L-E-I-G-H. Happy to help connect you with resources. I have been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people actually in my own job searches before, and so just have a lot of connections that might be valuable to you, and I'm happy to help in any way possible.
Thank you. Let me move to Callie really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a member of your group, Emily. So anybody who's already a member can search me there. Callie, K-A-L-L-I, Maggio, M-A-G-G-I-O. Also LinkedIn, I think I use LinkedIn most out of all my social medias these days. So I can be found there too. And I think it's just Callie Maggio, LinkedIn/Callie Maggio. Fortunately, not many people spell their name the way I do, so it should be easy to find.
Awesome, thank you. Let me move to Madeline.
Also a big fan of LinkedIn. That's going to be the best way to reach me. My name is just spelled M-A-D-E-L-I-N-E. Last name is Southgate, S-O-U-T-H-G-A-T-E. Again, I love LinkedIn. It's a great way to connect. The other thing that's really nice is if you need anything, you can add the notes when you connect, and that's probably going to be the fastest way to get both a connection and a response. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Cora?
Yes. So if you, as an employee, as an employer, need any HR advice, I help with anything from policies and procedures to handbooks to communications to employee relations issues and all that good stuff, and can also help you as an employee navigate those tough conversations that you might be having and knowing your options. Also, this is a time where a lot of small businesses are thinking that they just don't have any resources, and possibly that those small business loans don't really apply to them because maybe it's 1 to 2 people. And so I can also assist you with that. You can reach me at cora@hrblack.org. You can also, I also have a website, hrblack, so that's my last name, .org. And yeah, so hope to be hearing from you all.
Thank you, Cora. And then Tony, hopefully your Wi-Fi is back.
Yes, it is. And you can reach me through Emily's Facebook group, or you can reach me through LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. I'm going to link all of you. So it'll be easy access in case people are like, what did he say? So perfect. Thank you guys so much again for your time today. I didn't even have a chance to look at the comments, so I'll kind of go through there and sift. And if you guys want to go into the Facebook group, if you have time, I already know I took up a lot of your time today, but just know that it's so appreciated. And yeah, thank you guys so, so, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Take care.